Welcome everyone to the training, and we're going to continue our task 2 interventions and assessing, assembling, and reformulating emotions. And we're going to talk about the acronym called RISK. We're going to start with this, and then we're going to go to specific interventions. Today is going to be a full hour and maybe 15, 20 minutes. If it gets too much, we can stop a little bit earlier. But otherwise, let's start with RISK. RISK is an acronym for how we, as the therapists, work with the client and how we help clients to become attuned to their emotions, attuned to their partner, attuned to the session, and maintain focus in the session. And RISK also allows us as a therapist to check in with ourselves during the session and to see if we're on track working with clients. This is a mantra that I have in my head every time I work with clients. Am I creating safety for my client, right? This is a risk. The name RISK, it basically says, if we don't do what it says in the risk, that's a risk category. If we don't do what this acronym stands for, we're risking losing our client's connection. We're risking for them feeling unheard. We're risking for creating the breaking therapeutic alliance, and we're risking for them exiting the couples therapy or family therapy or individual therapy before treatment is completed. So there's specific words that we're going to talk about, and the first word in acronym says repeat. Everything we do in EFT has to be mentioned and talked about multiple times. Just like with children, we need to consistently repeat what we want them to do, how we want them to behave, what the expectations are. And it takes a long time to tell our children and for them to acquire that skill that we're trying to teach them. So in EFT, we repeat a lot. In fact, if you're new to EFT, it's going to be very hard to go back and repeat the same thing over and over again, thinking that the client will get upset, or they're going to come back to you and say that you already said that, I already know it, you don't need to repeat many times. But in reality, that doesn't happen. In reality, it doesn't happen because when clients are emotionally activated, when they have difficulty in their relationship, the repetition is their friend. The more we repeat, the more they have an opportunity to absorb, accept, and connect with what the current experience is. When we don't repeat, the clients get lost. And you can see that in the therapy session when the client starts asking you, can you repeat this again? Or can you say that again? Or what did you say just a couple of minutes ago? And that's the first sign that they're overwhelmed and we don't repeat enough for them to get hold of what we're trying to tell them. So let's take a quick example of what the repetition looks like. Typically, I would say that to a partner, to one of the clients, I would say, I would reflect. In reflection, I say, this is really difficult for you. You want to be closer to John. You want to be connected. It's really tough because every time you try to connect, you get that pushback. And no matter how many times you try, no matter what you do, it seems like you get stuck in this. And there's nothing you can do. So trying to connect to your partner, trying to connect to John is really difficult for you. Is that what it is? I finished these sentences and my statements by asking if this is accurate for the client. But I repeat many times the same thing. And when the client tells me, yeah, that sounds accurate, or the client can tell me, no, it's a little bit different. But let's say they say it sounds accurate. I'm going to come back and I'm going to go forward and I'm going to repeat this again. Of course, you can connect to that. You can connect to it right here, right now. It's so hard when you're trying to be close to your partner, when you're trying to be intimate and then you can't because something stands in the way. And it seems like there's no way out of this. And when the client responds and I talk to them, I go, I'm going to come back and repeat it again. This is not an easy place to be for you. You want to be close with your partner. You want to be connected. You want to have a contact, but it's so scary. It's so scary in this moment, and you get stuck there. That continuous repetition and checking in with clients, is that what it feels like for you? Is that how you experience it? Is that where you are right now? Allows the clients to absorb what they're experiencing and make that experience explicit. By making this experience internally explicit, they can connect to it. So when the time comes for me to ask the client to share their experience with their partner, I would repeat it again. I would say, can you turn to John? Can you tell him how difficult it is for you? In the moment when you want to be close with your partner, something pushes you away from your partner. Can you share with him how difficult it is for you? And when the client shares it, I'm going to repeat it again. Well, thank you for taking risk. Thank you for taking risk and turning to John and let him know how difficult it is for you to connect, how much you want to be closer, but you don't know how. It takes a lot of courage to do this. And then when I come back to the client and say, how is it for you to share it with your partner? I'm going to repeat it again. How is it for you to share your experience of not being able to connect with your partner, wanting to be close and not being able to be close? How is it for you right here, right now? And I repeat again. Then when I turn to the partner, to John, and I say, John, I wonder what's happening for you right now. As your wife is sharing with you how difficult it is for you, for her to connect with you and be close to you, how scared she gets. What's your experience in that moment? So that's again a repetition. And then when he says, well, I didn't know that she feels this way. I didn't see it. This is a surprise for me. I'm going to repeat it again. I'm going to say, of course it's a surprise. In your experience, everything's okay. You come home, there's no signs that your partner is distressed. And it's hard to see that in that moment, she doesn't know what to do. She gets scared, she gets worried, and she can't reach out to you. So she shuts down. But that doesn't come across, and there's no way to figure out. But right here, right now, she shared with you, and I repeat it again. She shared with you how difficult for her to be in this moment when she wants to be close to you and she doesn't know how. And I wonder if you can share with her. Can you share with her that I'm surprised? I didn't know. I didn't realize how difficult it is for you. I didn't realize how difficult it is for you to connect with me, want to be close with me. So you can see how many times I repeat things over and over again. Repetition is your best friend. Repetition is the formula for success, because when two people are in distress, when family is in distress, when individual client is in distress, your friend is repetition over and over again. It takes multiple passes before client can accept what's happening and make sense of it, and now switch from purely emotional responsiveness to have some understanding and more of a cognitive understanding of this. I always kind of look at when I wash my car and I want to polish it, you can't really polish it in one move. You have to take a little bit coarse clay and a little bit smaller, and finally you do this glass finish. We have to make it continuously repeat. We need to continuously repeat what clients experience for them to absorb that experience and make that experience implicit, from implicit to explicit. The second part of the task to intervention, and that is,
I have a question. So how do we know when to stop?
Typically,
Great question.
Typically when you come back with the question, is that what it feels like for you? Is this your experience? You want to know if they're able to understand it. If they say, yes, this is my experience, that's a time to say one more repetition makes sense now, and you repeat the experience. But it also allows you now to switch to another partner and say, how was it for you to hear this? Right? You can go one step further, and when the client says, yeah, that's exactly what it feels like, you can come back and say, and I wonder if you can share it with your partner in your own words, if you can explain it in your own way. Because I'm kind of guessing here a bit, but this is your life. This is your lived experience. And that allows the clients to own their experience and share that experience with their partner. So in general, you can continue going as long as you want. But don't forget, we can't just stay with one client. We can repeat, but the goal of repetition with one client is for us to be able to pass that experience to their partner. Right? And then repeat it again and understand the response of the partner. So,
Right.
yeah.
So both parties can hear it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Repetition is such a powerful tool, and it's a lot of times underutilized because we, the therapist, feel that we're getting boring, repeating the same thing over and over again. But for the client, it's a life rope. It's a life rope for them to get to a place where they feel safe. So the next one, we go to the images. In the image, we have two things here that we can do with clients. One is to ask the clients to describe their experience in a relationship or in a specific situation using imagery. That's one thing. The other part is us as a therapist to conjecture into imagery and ask the client, is that what it looks like? Is that what pain's doing? That's how you experience this? So there's two ways of doing it. Both of them are good. Sometimes clients cannot paint the picture. No matter what you do, they get stuck and they can't paint the picture of their relationship. Like one client I work with would say, I feel like I'm in the Sahara desert, and there's a line in the middle. On the left side of the line, there's a green pasture. On the right hand of the line, there's a desert. And I'm standing in the desert, and I can't move. I know I can get to my partner. I know my partner is waiting me there in a green place, but I can't move. Right? She painted the picture of her experience. Right? She was able to do this, to paint it. And some people can't do this, but most people have difficulty to paint that experience. So when we come back and we say, I wonder, as you share with me your experience with your partner, how hurt you get. Is there something comes up in your mind as an image or something that you can maybe take a canvas and paint an image with words so I can better understand what's happening for you, so your partner can better understand? And sometimes people can't. They say, no, I don't know exactly. There's nothing comes up. Like one client says, it just feels like a circular thing. We always go into the same thing. Well, we know that's our cycle, right? So they say we're just like a squirrel in the wheel. We just keep running. The faster we run, the worse it gets. Okay, that's good enough. They painted the picture. I can use that picture now, and I can conjecture into this picture, and I can say, of course. I can only imagine being exhausted, running in circles, trying to connect to your partner and not being able to do this. It's such an amazing picture. Thank you for sharing with me to be inside of the wheel. And the faster you run, the more you get hurt, and you can't slow down because you love your partner. So you're stuck there. So you can do a lot of this conjecturing around the clients providing the imagery for us. Or we can create an imagery ourselves, because when the clients get stuck and get overwhelmed, they may not be able to have enough artistic part of the left part of their brain to come up with some kind of picture, right? So it's up to us to see if we can come up with a picture and run it by our client and say, is that what it feels like? And like a simple example would be, I want to be so close to my partner. I want to start trusting him again. And is that what happens to you? It feels like you're hanging on the edge of the cliff, by your fingernails, and you're just saying to your partner, can you please catch me? Because if I let go, I'm going to get hurt. If I start trusting again, I'm going to get hurt again. Is that what it feels like? Is that what the picture looks like? So we can conjecture into the imagery and for them to imagine what it feels like, you know. Like I had the recent conversation where I conjecture into the life passing by. So is that what it feels like? You're sitting in the boat and in the river just takes you where it wants to take you. You can't control where it's going to take you, no matter which side you go to. There's no way to decide how to get to the banks of the river. Is that where you are? And she goes, yeah, I'm just an observer. I have no control over my life. I'm just going down the river, and I'm just scared that there's going to be a waterfall someplace. Okay, now she added something to it. It was great, right? So the imagery helps us to solidify experience, emotional experience, and also relational experience between us and the family, or our partner, our children, or between yourself and the part of you that is hurting, right? So that's a big deal. The next one is, how do we interact with our clients? And we're going to talk a little bit more about other interventions during today. And we need to be able to help the clients to de-escalate. We don't want them to have escalating experience in the session. We want to protect them, keep them safe. They know that when they come to our session, they will be protected. They won't get hurt. Now, it doesn't always happen, but that's what we want to do. And we also want to do everything to connect to their internal hurts and longings, and for them to trust us that we're going to keep them safe. So for this, we have to look at the way we talk. And the next three S's is for simple. That means we keep the conversation simple. We don't make compounding sentences. We don't make difficult narrations. We want to keep the conversation simple so that so they don't need to have cognitive processing. So that's where the simple comes from. So a lot of times I may say, and in that moment you got hurt, and there's no place to go. Is that what it is? It's a very simple sentence. Or you want to connect, you want to be closer, but you don't know what to do. Or you tried so many times, but you got stuck. And every time you tried, it feels like you failed. Is that what it is? So keep it very simple, so clients don't need to have cognitive processing of the sentence you make. The next one is soft, right? We want to keep voice soft, but sometimes we match our voice to the voice of our clients, because if client is escalating, or if we want to heighten certain emotions, right? We may raise our voice a little bit. For example, if I want, of course that was so scary, or of course you got so angry and frustrated. I can see that was not easy for you. You wanted to figure out what to do, but there was no way out of it. So the anger came up, right? You can kind of make inflection and make this anger bigger. But then when we talk about attachment needs and hurts, you can soften up and say, but what you really want is to be close to John and be loving and caring. And you don't want to hurt anymore. Is that what it is? So that's bringing it softer, right? Now, when a client exhibits escalation, sometimes we may want to match that. And then once we match it, start bringing it down to a softer level with the client. So if a client says, I'm pissed off right now because, again, look what's happening right now in this room. It's my fault, it's my fault, it's my fault. And then they say, of course, that's uncomfortable. I can see that. There's so much anger coming from you because your partner is so important to you. And you get stuck. Is that what it is? Then I slow things down and I bring it down a notch until he comes with me or she comes with me, and then I keep it soft again. The other part of the conversation or the language and presence is a slow. If you think you're fast, most of the time, if you think you're slow, most of the time you are still fast. It's a deliberate process. We speed up normally in a conversation because it's difficult to maintain a slow conversation. And that's part of the work that we have to do, is to practice to talk slow in the face of emotional escalations, difficulties, accusations, blames, and criticism. It's up to us to maintain that slow pace. Like in every dangerous profession, slow is fast. Slow is always providing results because you don't make mistakes and don't go back trying to fix those mistakes. If we go too fast, if we react to our clients too fast, then we typically going to make a mistake. So me internally, I'm kind of imagine myself like a lizard in the cold weather, barely moving, looking around. And for me personally, it took a little time to adjust to be slow. But once, and mainly by watching my own videos, working with clients, and understanding that when I go too fast, I lose clients. If I'm going too fast, they may not catch up with me. They may not stay with me in the moments when we're discussing very emotionally difficult situation. So simple, soft, and slow. That's kind of a mantra I have in my head. Then the next S, which is specific, that recently was added, and was recently added because specifics in EFT are important. Even though we don't focus on content, but we need to understand specific situation in which the difficulty arises with clients. All right, so a lot of times when clients come in, we may want to ask them, how was your week? Anything happened during the week where you both got hurt, or you maybe got disconnected, or felt that you're not close to each other? And the clients will tell us, yes, we had a big fight, or we had a little fight, and we had it on Sunday, and we couldn't recover until Tuesday or Wednesday, right? But having that specificity, okay, now we have the fight, now we have flare-up, now we have interaction that didn't go well. We can take this interaction, understand what happened there, and then come back and attend to the client's emotional needs and help them share their needs with their partner and help the partner to respond to those needs. So even though we don't use content once we go into emotional processing, we need specificity. We need specificity to start. Specific is like it helps us to kind of ground to where we're going to start the processing emotional experience, almost like we need to have a genesis of the interaction, and having specifics, we can narrow it down and say something like, so in the moment when you turn to John and ask him to help you with dishes, is that when something happened? That's when John got upset? That's a very specific moment. We're looking for a specific moment when there was a threat to the relationship, right? The cue, whatever cue was showed up there, whatever tone of voice, or maybe the way the partner looked and maybe rolling of the eyes, something created distress. And then from there, it's a runaway train. So having this specific moment allows us to focus on that specific moment and find the genesis of the problem, and then go into the emotional experience. And finally, client's words, that's the last C. Most of the time when I make notes, I make a little bit of notes of what's actually happening. but a lot of times I write down specific words that clients use, and I will try to incorporate those words into the rest of the session. Because when the clients refer to something in their own words, the last thing you want to do is to adjust them to your own words and reflect them back in your own words versus actually using clients' words. So if a client says, I kind of feel uncomfortable to talk about this here, then I'll write the word uncomfortable. And then I reflected back using their words. I said, yeah, I can see how uncomfortable it is for you. And help me understand what's happening right now that makes you feel uncomfortable, right? Because that will connect to the client. The clients feel that I hear them, I understand them, and they will be able to respond. But if I come back and say, well, I can see how difficult it is for you, I will miss the mark. Or I can say, I can see how you don't want to be in this situation, sitting here and then fighting with your wife. Again, I missed the mark. When the client brings their words, I'm going to use their words because they're the most important words for them, and they will connect with them, and their internal structure is already tuned to those words. So we should not be introducing words that are not tuned into the client. Now, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so sometimes my clients will use words that are just not very helpful. Like they'll use words like, I don't feel good, I feel bad. Now in those cases, then I tend to use imagery or I tend to guess more because the words they're giving me are just so poor. They don't have any nuance to them. So am I on the right track, or should I just use those kind
You're on the
of
right track, but before I would go into different wording, I would probably reflect back with the words that he gave me. Right. I would say, yeah, I can see it. It's just gonna feel bad. And it's like there's internal feeling that something's not right. I feel bad. Is that what's happening for you? It's like I don't know how to put my fingers on it. I don't know how to make sense out of it. It just feels bad. It's like having this taste in your mouth after you eat something that doesn't taste good. Is that what it is? I'm gonna conjecture into those experiences. I will use his words, and I will actually write them down. So the next session, when we start, and they say, "Hey, you had difficulty with your partner," he said, "It didn't feel good, did it?" And I'll use them again. But that will eventually help him to make additional words describing their experience.
So normally when I get those types of answers, I ask them, help me understand, what does that look like for you? What is bad, where I'm good, look like for you? So you're saying to conjecture it and use imagery into their experience instead?
Yeah, that's what I do because I feel like I can't work with good and bad. I mean, like there's no meat there. So I'm trying to get some meat. So I conjecture more. But I
But
see what Jack is
but
saying,
let's
that I need
say,
to slow down a bit.
yeah,
Yeah.
we don't need to go right away into adjusting their experience, right? If you want to
Yeah.
expand their experience by saying, "Can you tell me what this bad means?" You can. But before we go into there, spending time and understanding that this is their words, let's use these words.
Gotcha.
In a way, allow ourselves to stay in uncertainty with the clients, even if we don't have exact understanding of what their emotional experience is. Because they're the ones who told us that they feel bad, and this is their emotions. We're gonna take it with what we have. But eventually, yes, Angie, your way of doing it is great, and your Kelvin way of doing it is great, to expand on it. The goal at the end of the day is to expand their emotional experience so they have a little bit nuanced way of expressing to you what's happening for them. Yes.
I see, but it's helpful for us to use their words initially so they feel a sense of safety and that we're listening and that we're reflecting, what they're giving to us. Okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Remember when we talked about therapeutic alliance, one of the things we said that we have to monitor it all the time. when we use clients' words, we're reinforcing therapeutic alliance because we're entering their world, and that's what they're giving us in their world. We're going to use it. But our job is also not to just stay in one place, but expand their experience. And then comes the questions. Help me better understand. I can see how feeling bad is not something that you enjoy. But help me understand, how do you experience feeling bad? So you can go into that, just like Angie said, and then you said. And
Okay.
okay, let's stay in uncertainty, even if we don't know what to do with these emotions. We can conjecture into them. So as you're coming here and you're talking to me about your experience over the week, it just doesn't feel good. So I don't know what to do. Is that what you're saying to me? I don't know. It just doesn't feel good. I can't put my fingers on it. I can't make sense out of it. I can't really describe anything else. It just doesn't feel good. Is that what it is? If he says, yeah, that's exactly what it is. Okay, we can work with that. Or if they come back and say, no, I can give you more details. Oh, great. Tell me more. Right. Okay. So we're in risk. That's our mantra. That's what we live from. If I look at my notepad, on the bottom of every page, I have this written down. Repeat images, simple, soft, slow, specific clients on a digital pad. Because that keeps me, as I point my head down, that keeps me reminding me, right? There's another thing there that says, wait, why am I talking? That's a separate one, right? Don't overpower the client and let them talk also. All right, let's jump into actual interventions because we got 7 of them to do today. And empathic reflection, validation, evocative responding, redirection, heightening, empathic conjecture, and disquisition. Disquisition is one of the more interesting interventions, and it's an important one because it helps us to deal with clients who are very resistant into accepting what we're providing, accepting the framework of their fears and worries. So we're able to do this with disquisition. So let's start with empathic reflection. Okay. In empathic reflection, we want to look for words that are focusing on sadness and regretfulness in the relationship. Right? That's an important part. In EFT, that's a very specific intervention. When the clients talk to us and they say, last night we got into a fight and we ended up sleeping in different rooms. We just stopped talking. I closed the door to the bedroom and he opened and says, why are you closing the door? But at the end, he just fell asleep on the couch and I
Looks like you haven't set up any smart.
and why did you close the door? Close the door. And well, I don't know what we're going to do, right? So that's in this interaction, for example. I will use empathic reflection, looking at the sadness and the regretfulness of the situation and the emotion that the client has in the present moment. And I would come back and I would say, of course, you wanted to be close together. And I can see that there's a lot of sadness coming through. That we know that you ended up in different bedrooms. No matter what you tried, you couldn't connect with each other. So this is an empathic reflection toward the sadness of the situation they're in and toward the feeling regret that they could not figure out how to connect with them. Right? If you look at what we reflect, right? How do we reflect? What are we looking for to reflect on? We're looking at those words they say, the client's words, right? We want to look at the surface emotions, anger, frustration. We want to look at the reactive emotions, shutting down, stonewalling. We want to look at the body, movement, right? When they feel sad, they look down. When the clients cannot sustain stress and they turn away from you, or their feet are shaking or wringing their hands or maybe sweating, maybe hot flashes, whatever happens. We'll look at the facial expression, tears, clenched fists, swallows, lip biting, gestures, breathing, voice tone, the pacing of the conversation. All of them are important for us to provide empathic reflection. And this is a moment-to-moment experience the client has. And as you listen to your client and observing clients, you will come back with an empathic reflection. I can see, I'm right here. Thank you for sharing. I can see how difficult it is. I can see your fists are getting really tight and the tears coming out. And I can see that it's hard for you to stay in one place. This is not an easy thing for you. That must be so sad that you cannot be close to your partner. This is what empathic reflection is in EFT. It's not just feeling that you're connecting with the client on experiential level, but what you empathically reflecting is the sadness of the situation. And then regretfulness of not being able to connect with their partner. So you would provide empathic reflection by saying, I can see that a lot of things coming up right now. It's almost like there's a regret that I couldn't do anything in the moment, because no matter what I tried, I couldn't connect with my partner. And at the end, we ended up in different places alone. So that's empathic reflection. There's a little statement here that we can read. So then you back away, Tom, and go flat and numb when you see Betsy's anger. Her anger is way too much to handle. Flat and numb. The anger is way too much to handle. So, and you can create your own empathic reflection, but the part that I focus a lot here is there sadness in the conversation? A lot of times clients may be very, very stoic and not to have too many emotions because they're hurting so much. They may not even be able to show you that they feel sad or there's a regret in any way. But that should not detract you, because we know that's always sad. We know there is a sadness of not being close to their partner. Even if there's anger, behind anger, there's softer emotions. And one of the emotions is sadness. So provide reflections toward that part of the conversation, and the clients will feel understood. Okay. The next intervention is validation. And in validation, one of the important things what we do is we communicate acceptance. We communicate acceptance and legitimacy of the client's experience. That means it's valid for you. We don't need to adjust your experience. We don't need to fix it. We don't need to minimize it. We don't need to add to it something, take away from it. We can accept it just the way it is. And in validation, we can also normalize your experience, that you're not too much, or you're not too little, or there's something wrong with you. It makes sense. It's understandable. We can accept it. And we can see how stuck you get. So again, when we validate, there are specific things we want to validate, right? The number one, we need to stay in the present moment. We don't validate the past. So if a client is sharing something happened in the past, we're not going to be reflecting the past and saying that, oh, I can see how difficult it was for you at that moment, right? No, we need to bring all of their experience in the present and validate in the present, because that's the only place the change can occur. It cannot occur in the past. It's in the present. So we want present moment experience, feelings, meanings that those feelings provide, and action tendencies. or this is what I do. When I feel this way, when I experience my relationship this way, this is what I do. That's action tendencies. If I get scared, this is what I do. If I get frustrated, this is what I do. And your behavior, even when you get angry or frustrated or you walk away, they're all legitimate behaviors. They're all understandable behaviors because they're all seen in the context of your experience with your partner or your experience with your family. And also in the context of this negative cycle that has been interrupting your relationship for a long time. So that's why we validate them. The trick here is to make sure that we validate one partner's experience without invalidating the other partner's experience. Right? That's a little trick here. To be able to attend and validate and say, I see what's happening. I see how you can get angry. It makes sense in this moment, right? And carefully make sure that the feeling that the other partner has, I get scared when he gets angry. I don't know what to do. I just want to run away. Not invalidating this experience with, because it's her partner, his or her partner's experience also valid. So here's the typical things what we do when we do validation. Here's the 4 ways to start validation, and there should be used most of the time. So start with, yes, I hear what you're saying. Acknowledging that what you're saying, I hear it, there's nothing wrong with it. That makes sense to me that you feel sad or frustrated and disappointed. Okay, from your point of view, and then you continue, from your point of view, it felt really uncomfortable. You didn't exactly know what to do. Okay. Or, yes, I can see how it affected you. I can see how difficult it became for you. So these are 4 common ways to start. You can adjust to your needs, but this is typically good starters to have in your notes and say, okay, this is how I do validation. I think I have okay. So I don't have a specific example here, but with this sentence, you can probably add to any of your clients. Yes, I hear what you're saying, that when you come home and you cannot connect with your partner and he's angry and frustrated, it gets really difficult and you just shut down and walk away. I hear it. It makes sense. It makes sense that you go into that place. So the validation is important because a lot of times clients feel that there's something wrong with them, that they react this way, that they're the ones that needs to be fixed, or they may feel that nobody gets them. They get upset and everybody just blames them. Well, you get upset because you're angry. That means you're doing something wrong. But to validate anger and say it makes sense for you that you get angry. Your partner gets stressed and worried and concerned when you get angry, but for you, there's no other way. This relationship is too important to you. Seems like the anger that comes up is saying, how do I fix it? How do I make sure that I'm connecting with my partner? So not only you can validate, but you can conjecture into the meaning of the anger as an attachment need to your partner. The next intervention is evocative responding. And evocative responding starts with questions and prompts that will call for emotional experience. We will call up those emotions to come into conversation by asking questions or providing prompts. So the goal for evocative responding is to identify and intensify emotions, because sometimes emotions in the conversation are very marginal. What marginal means that they show up on the surface very softly and they're dismissed quickly by your partner. You may say, yeah, I got a little worried. Yeah, but it's probably about me. I'm the one who's supposed to take care of it, right? Kind of dismissing those emotions. Yet, and they're a little marginal because you don't even know if they're real, or you think you should be stronger than that and to have those emotions. It's up to us not to dismiss those emotions, but to call up on those emotions and create the questions and prompts that those emotions becomes part of the conversation. Right? Without that, the person will continue to dismiss their experience and not be able to tune in to their emotional needs. So here's examples, evocative responding. I think there's a lot of them here. What is it like for you when Mark turns away and won't give you an eye contact? What is it like for you? Right. So that's a question that invites the emotional responsiveness. It brings the emotions in. What is it like for me? Oh, I feel dismissed. I feel invisible. When Mark doesn't look at me, I feel that he doesn't care. Right? Now you have emotions in the room. You can conjecture into those, and you can paint a picture around those emotions. You can connect to the sadness and regret in those emotions. Or what's going on for you right now as you sit here and you see your partner sitting next to you. What's going on for you right now? Or Phil, how does it feel when your wife says to you that she's afraid she's not special, that she's going to be too much trouble, that she thinks you're going to get fed up and leave? What do you feel when she says that? Again, it's a prompt and questions to invite the emotions into conversations. Otherwise, if we don't do this, we can get stuck in the conversation without emotional experience. And that's the hardest thing to do, because without emotional experience, we cannot change the interaction between people. What is going on for you right now as you look at him and see his sadness? Again, it's a prompt. So when you look at evocative responding, when you notice that there's a situation with a couple and they talk about the situation, but are not able to go into emotional experience or share their emotional experience, we're the ones who's going to help them to bring those emotions up by asking questions and by prompting them to attend to their emotional experience that they either disowned, afraid to bring up, or they feel that they're not significant enough to even talk about because their internal problem. So a client says, I just don't need anything from this relationship. And now we're going to bring the evocative responding. The therapist responds, how are you able to do this? There's nothing you need from your wife? And that's when emotions will be in the room. All right, the next intervention is heightening. And heightening is making emotions a little bit stronger. And the reason is sometimes emotions will show up and they're like at level 1 or 2, and especially if it's a primary emotion, sadness, fear, surprise, shame, and they're quickly dismissed. But these are big emotions that needs to be attended to and the client needs to be validated and reassured. So we're going to help to heighten those emotions so the client is able to build a tolerance to stay in that emotional experience, crystallize their emotional experience and make sense of it, and also realize that they need help with this emotional experience. It's too big. It's too big to manage, so they bring him down, shut him down. They don't want to bring it to the session. They don't want to discuss this because they're too uncomfortable to be around. So by heightening, we intensify client's emotional experience. We crystallize and deepen the key elements of their experience. And then we're going to do about 5 steps, right? So we're heightening by repeating. Every time you do repetition, you heighten the specific emotions. So here's an example. So you're saying to Phil, I'm scared, and I find it hard to believe that you really, really want to be with me. I'm so afraid. I'm scared to let you in to rest in your arms. And you can see that repetition is, I'm scared, right? I'm afraid. I'm scared. So in one sentence, we have 3 times we repeat the same thing. We want to heighten the part that I'm scared so our partner can see how important it is for me or for the client. Then we do presentation. We heighten their emotional experience by leaning forward in the conversation. So when I'm going to come back and I'm going to slow things down and hear their emotions, of course, it's so scary. I can only imagine how scary is it for you being in a place that you have 2 children, you want to be with your husband, and now the prospect of the divorce is on the line. That must be so difficult, right? And I lean into this. I want to heighten that fear. I will match the client's pace. If they go fast, I'll go faster. I'll match the volume to heighten the experience. If it's more vulnerable, I'll slow down. If it's more difficult or assertive responses, then I'll make my voice a little more assertive. And then we're going to move into metaphors and images. So as you can see, that heightening is a complex intervention. You can do many different ways, this intervention, and you kind of need to learn that there's not a one way to heighten the experience. But metaphors and images are very good. And I'm scared to let you in. I start to doubt if I open the door and start to count on him, how do I know that he won't find me too scared or depressed or too sick? So the metaphor or images, it's open the door, right? When I open the door, and you can come up with many different ones. And when you guys are in your castle and you raise that bridge, and there's alligators around the castle protecting you from the outside, that's a time you can take a deep breath and say, we're okay. Is that what it is? So sharing internal experiences and that heightening intervention, it resembles the enactment, but it's done outside of the EFT Tanga, okay? And that is typically when you somebody talks about the fears, you would come back and say, can you tell him right now that I'm scared? Scared when you get angry. Can you say it again? Now, typically that happens when the client already says that word and you ask them to repeat it. So it's not that you're coming up with something and you're saying, can you tell them that? But the client says, I get scared. I get scared when he gets angry. And then you're going to do the share internal experience. Can you say it again? Can you turn to your partner and say it one more time? Right, I'm so scared. I'm so alone, I can't find you. Can you turn to her and do it again? Right? So we're taking the client's words, client's experience, we multiply it. Say, please do it again. Because sometimes we say that and they pass by so fast that the other partner may not even notice or not pay attention to it. And then refocusing, that's the last part. Maintain the emotional intensity by blocking client's exit. So you heighten the emotional experience when you don't let the clients to go to a different discussion. And typically it looks like this. And I can see, John, how difficult it is for you right now and how frustrating it is for you. And John comes back and says, well, yeah, do you mind? I'm going to give you right now a different example, exactly how it happens, Jack. Let me tell you right now. So this is what happens. And I come back to John and said, John, you shared something so important. Can we stay with this just for a minute before we go into anything else? Because I can see how difficult it is for you. I can see how hurtful it is when you want to connect with your partner and you get rejected. Can we stay right here? So we refocus back on the conversation and we block all the exits so the client can stay in their emotional experience. So heightening is not a difficult intervention to do, but there are many different ways to do the heightening of the experience. And now if you watch some videos, Sue Johnson videos, you can use this to see where she heightens things and what skills she's using. The next one is empathic conjecture. And again, it has a very interesting name, empathic conjecture, but it comes down to our best guess based on client's experience, right? Based on our experience with the clients and client's experience in life and the relationship, we're making best guesses. For us to have to do correct conjectures, we need to immerse ourselves in the client's experience. We can't just take generalistic approach and say, well, in this relationship, this is how it works. No, we understand their interactions, we understand how they get hurt, we understand how they fight, and then we can make empathic conjectures into their life story, into their experience, into their relationship. So one of the things that we need to learn for this to work is we need to understand their attachment history. Where did they get hurt when they were young? Where did they get hurt in a relationship? Where did they hurt when they had other intimate relationships in their lives? Right? We need to understand their negative pattern and how it works, right? How they get caught in this pattern, how one client triggers the other and they get shut down, and that triggers first clients and they start getting upset, and that triggers the second client, and so forth. What strategies they use to protect themselves, to cope with their partners, to cope with their family, to cope with their internal emotional experiences and with life, right? We need to understand that. So empathic conjectures, you can start doing it in the first session after you get initial understanding of the interaction, and you can limit them to what you understand. As you spend more time with the client, your empathic conjecture is going to be more accurate. They're going to be more impactful, because the client will connect to them, because you will know their attachment history, you know their pattern, you know the strategies, so you can conjecture to them and they will connect with them. And the final thing is, we can do empathic conjecture even without knowing anything about our client, because we understand the attachment, right? And we understand that most people have fears of abandonment and rejection. And most people have attachment longings. So even if we don't have enough information with our clients, we can still do conjectures based on universal attachment longing, based on universal fears of I'm not loved, I'm not cared for, I'm not important, and my partner is not there for me when I need them. Based on ARE, accessible, responsive, and engaged. My partner is not accessible, responsive, and engaged with me. So we can conjecture into those universal things. But then as we get to know client better and better, we can fine-tune our conjectures and become much more effective. So here's the conjecture. Here's a conjecture. You're telling me that it's lonely, and the loneliness is overwhelming, like a complete rejection. And you respond with an attack because it hurts. And I hear that it hurts, that you feel lonely and rejected. I also wonder if the hurt contains longing for connection. So this is your conjecture now, right here. This is a conjecture. And I wonder if the hurt contains longing for connection, or longing to be held and comforted, that a part of you longs to be with him, to make that connection, to be with him, really with him. Does that fit you? And the final finishing thing, being tentative about your empathic conjectures. Always finish empathic conjectures with a question, and allow the clients to either confirm what you conjecture into, or adjust it, or reject it. Doesn't matter what happens, you're going to win as a therapist, and you're going to be able to adjust your conjecture to meet clients' needs. Okay, so these are straightforward interventions. This one is very interesting. Disquisition. Disquisition is when your client is kind of stuck and they cannot explore their experience. They have internal fears, worries, concern, rejection, maybe resentment, and they have this, and they have a view that nothing we can do will help us, almost like there's no hope. So disquisition is used by bringing experience that you had with somebody else and telling the story to a client about similar situation they're experiencing right now. That could be story with a client. That could be a movie that you saw maybe where the situation was similar to what they have right now. That would be a book that you maybe read and had similar situation, maybe some books that are common that many people know the stories, right? So when you try evocative strategies, interventions, and none of them evoke responses, then we go to disquisition, telling a story about another client. Of course, we gotta be careful, no names, but no confidentiality. But typically, in general, this is what happens, with some similarity to the client's distress. So in a way, we have metaphorical description of their current distress through the eyes of different couple or different family or different individual. And ideally, it will contain the elements of what the couple is experiencing right now. So there's a disquisition. Let's take a look at this disquisition if it makes sense. Sometimes couples get locked into a pattern that is difficult to understand. I've been thinking about a couple I know that gets stuck around holiday celebrations. So this is what the preparation looks like. We're preparing for disquisition by bringing up experience outside of the couple's experience that's sitting in front of you. They can even see it coming, but they just feel hopeless or helpless once the issue gets going. She has a close relationship to her family and wants to be part of her family's holiday gatherings. He sees it as her family's control over her. And at any rate, he tends to challenge her desire to hang out with her family as a sign of her lack of commitment to their marriage. So if this aligns with what the client is experiencing and telling the story, and you can say, and it seems like you guys are going through the same difficulty. Your family wants you to spend more time. And for you, John, you're thinking they're taking this time away from me. And then you guys get stuck. And we want to get acceptance from the client that this is similar. Once we get a similarity, we can now work with it and start employing other interventions to help the client to go back into the emotional experience. But I would say that disquisition is a very powerful interventions, and especially when you get stuck with a client. So I don't use it in general. If you just talk, if everything else is working, I don't use disquisitions. I bring it in only when we kind of hit the brick wall and we're not able to go anywhere. I said, it reminds me of one case I had years ago, and then I go into disquisition. And in many cases, it's powerful enough that in many cases clients will realign, get engaged, and you can start using regular interventions. Okay. So here's the 4 parts of the disquisition that you want to bring for it to work, right? First one includes acknowledgement of client's difficulty. So the story needs to acknowledge the difficulty. Like in the one we have right now, it says sometimes couples get locked into pattern that is difficult, right? So acknowledging the difficult, and you can even tell them, yeah, I can see that we're kind of stuck in this difficult pattern. It's not that you're the only ones, that other people get stuck in this place. It's so difficult for you. Then inquisition is to provide description about how other clients had a similar struggle. So in a way, we're normalizing the client's struggle, that this is not unique to them, that there's other people that had the same experience. Then step 3 is describe a particular pursuer mistrust of more engaged withdrawer. And that is because in the couple we have pursuer withdrawer. In this case, maybe pursuer's mistrust. I don't trust you. You tell me you're not going to do this anymore, but I don't trust you because you've done it so many times, right? But there could be the other one. If the withdrawer is not engaged yet, you can say, yeah, I don't know if I want to trust my partner and share with her my experience because she's going to dismiss it. Okay, so different ways, but we need to describe particular situation where there's an interaction between withdrawer and pursuer and withdrawer that's not working. Okay, and then we need to come back and talk about the reference to fears of reconnecting, fears to becoming closer, and distrust in engaging in the interaction. That I can't trust that my partner will really do anything to help me. I don't trust that I'm going to be heard or accepted. So that's a disquisition, okay? So not an easy one, but it's also a very powerful one. So I would really recommend to spend some time on that. Let's go to the next concept. A lot of times when we work with our clients, one of the jobs that we need to do is to make our clients more vulnerable and open, and remove the protection they put around their hearts so that we can attend to that vulnerability. But with this comes a danger that they're going to get hurt. Because if we remove all the defenses and the client says, I'm really scared to lose you, that's removing all defenses, that's removing all the walls, all the barriers, and saying, my heart is open, don't hurt me. I am scared to lose you. You are important to me. Right? We need to protect the clients from getting hurt. And that's where catching bullets is. Now, it can be referred to many different ways. Catching bullets, catching daggers, catching knives, different clients will come with different things, and the different clients will conjecture into different feeling when they get hurt. Right? So a lot of times during the session, the client can say, I can't share it with it because it has such sharp words that they just hurt so much, right? So we're going to protect the clients from those sharp words, right? So there's 3 types of bullets that are available for clients, and what we need to watch out for and to protect our clients. One bullet is partner shares and the receiving partner is so disoriented, right? So I'm sharing with my distress and my emotional worries and concern, but my partner gets so disoriented because they're not used to it. They're not used to hear from me how they affect me, and they may feel a lot of guilt and remorse or anger that they're causing that much hurt, but they feel disoriented by the new expression of vulnerability. And then they respond by accusing you of accusatory tone, telling you that this is not true, that's not how it happened, mistrusting you, minimizing your experience. So that's a difficult part. So that's a bullet. When the client opens up emotionally and their partner doesn't understand what's happening, they will come back and accuse of manipulation or not trusting what the client is saying or minimizing their experience. So we're going to be protecting the client. So that's one bullet. The second bullet is sarcastic or unkind accusations, either family member or couple, right? And these are moments of aggression. They can come up because one partner shares something about the experience, or they can come up from the onset of the session where you're just inviting clients in, they sit down and right away the accusations come up. But all of them are very difficult and they're hurtful. And part of the way of dealing with them and how we help the clients is to adjust them as attachment, fears, and longings. So if somebody says, you're not that good yourself. Look how many times you abandoned me when I needed you. You just walked away from me, right? And then we come back and say, of course, let's just start again. We come back and we say, can we slow down right now? Because I get a feeling there's so much worry on your side that you want to be close to your partner. You want to be connected. You want to know when you need your partner, they show up. But what's coming up right now is I'm so dysregulated. The only thing that comes up for me that I'm going to get hurt. Is that what happens? So we can help with stopping this bullet. But these bullets are very big, and a lot of times they involve quick interaction with the clients to stop this so that the clients on the other side doesn't get hurt. And then bullet number 3, when client turns toward themselves and start making derogatory remarks toward themselves, or they hear that accusation or derogatory remark from your client, from their partner, even though partners don't say that, right? It's an imaginary derogatory remark. It's imaginary accusations, even though the clients may share their own experience, but by the time it crosses over to their partner, it may feel like an accusation, right? And a lot of times it happens during enactment, right? When one partner shares something, and instead of accepting partner sharing, partner reacts and says, I can see you're blaming me, right? So that's what, these are 3 types of bullets that we're going to deal with. And then we need to be able to attend to those bullets and protect the other clients from the bullet. And the way we protect from the bullets, through reflection and reframes. And that's our tool. Reflection and reframes are a tool to protect our clients from the bullets or daggers or knives or arrows or anything else. We reflect back, and remember, we can go back to the intervention. We reflect back into sadness and regret and remorse, right? And reframe what they're saying from attachment point of view, from longing, from need, and that slows down the bullet before it hits the other person. Big part of it is to watch your own videos. The way you start training yourself is to from the corrective emotional experience at the time you watch your own videos. Ability to go in and sit for an hour and a half and watch a video and say, I was a little bit too fast here. I can see how I a little bit overreacted to the client's question, or I talked too much, right? That's what I found that brought me into a place where I can slow things down and just kind of maintain self-awareness of the speed at which I go because of hundreds and hundreds of videos that I have rewatched and looked at and came to terms. In a way, what I was able to do is to connect my internal experience of watching with my internal experience while being with the client. Because I can see internally, I can feel internally in my body when I see myself talking too fast. When I connect that experience in the room, usually I will do the same thing. When you start talking fast, you will experience something. And that's when I go back to myself and I tell myself, wait, why am I talking? Right? Why am I talking? Wait. And then I said, take a breath, pull back. Because sometimes when you're in the conjecture and being very close to the clients, you may not notice or your own escalation internally or your own discomfort. So you pull back, you look at the overall environment with the client and say, let's gonna see what's happening right now. Slow down, and then you come back at a much slower pace. Right? A lot of times we call it zoom in and zoom out. When we zoom in to specific emotions, we may get dysregulated ourselves. So it's important to zoom out, all the way out, and even tell the clients, wow, I can see that incident where you walked in the house and you couldn't connect with your partner, and he kind of had dinner by himself and walked into his room. That was tough, you guys. That's me zooming out, bringing the whole experience again. And then when I feel balanced again, then I go back and zoom in. I find the emotional entry door and say, can we come back to the moment when you were in the kitchen? He came back and he said, I'm stuck. I want to be close to you, but I'm stuck. Can we get to that moment? What's happened to you right here, right now, when we kind of think about this moment? So that allows me to back zoom in and help the clients to go into their emotional experience and help me to stay regulated. Thank you for staying. I think we're done for today. And if you have any questions, reach out. Go from there.